Hey everyone, it's Zach from Zack Reptiles. I wanted to do a quick video on the electrical pull and demand, some of the precautions you might want to take into consideration when you convert a bedroom into a reptile room. So let's get started. Alright, so let's get into this. The first topic I want to cover is the different types of reptile rooms you can have. One will be strictly ambient temperatures. This is typically achieved by having a radiator heater, which is approximately 1500 watts, hooked up to a high-powered thermostat. This is how I do it typically. I do have a Herpstat HP thermostat that I use to power a radiator heater. The heater that I have has the ability to have 700 watts, 800 watts, or 1500 watts. I typically only run it at 800 watts because there's no reason for me to do anything more than that. I can achieve my temperatures with that and reduce the risk in case there was a thermostat failure and it did fail in the on position, which the thermostat that I currently have does not. The temperatures will only hit a certain point. With that said, you still always want to check your temperatures, keep an eye on everything. Currently, the reptile room is at 83.7 degrees. Another method is heating individual enclosures. In this type of scenario, you would use heat tape, heat cable, which is not something I recommend, radiant heat panels. Specific type of animals will use a basking lamp or something of that sort. Then the third type would be a mixture, would be ambient temperatures mixed with creating hot spots in your reptile enclosures. A lot of people use this method, so depending on what species you work with will really determine which method works best for you. I work mostly with blood pythons. Ambient temperatures work for me, and that's what I stick with. I've had the most luck with it, and that's typically what works for me. With that said, keep in mind most homes are set on a breaker that is either 15 amps or 20 amps. You don't want to go over your amperage because you can trip your breaker, your heating will go out. You don't want to overpower any of the circuits. If you do have a 15 amp breaker, do not upgrade it to a 20 amp unless you have an electrician take a look at it. You want to make sure your home wiring is set up to handle that much amperage. Now let's get back to the radiator heaters. So a radiator heater is typically rated at 1500 watts. If you really break that down, that's about 12.5 amps. You're almost already at your 15 amp max if you use a 15 amp breaker on your circuit breaker. If you have a 20 amp, you have a little bit more legroom on that. Now that we discussed radiant heating, let's go down to individual enclosures and rack systems and that sort. So in individual enclosures, you'll either have heat tape on the bottom of the enclosure or a radiant heat panel. If you're using a radiant heat panel, make sure you read the specs, make sure your power settings are where you need it, make sure you have enough amperage, and always ensure you hook everything up to a thermostat. There's two different types of thermostats that are typically used. There's on-off, and then there's proportional, which is also a dimming. It'll adjust the voltage and the wattage to achieve the desired temperature that you need to. With rack systems, it's usually made out of a heat tape. There's two main brands that are used in the reptile industry. While there are others, I'm just going to cover these two. There's THG and FlexWatt. FlexWatt heat tape is typically rated at 10 watts per linear foot. THG heat tape is rated at approximately 4 watts per linear foot, and that's 3-inch. 11-inch FlexWatt is rated at 20 watts per linear foot, where THG is 24 watts per linear foot. Typically, your heating is going to be either snaked through the rack, or it's going to be, each level is going to have a layer of heat tape that is plugged into a power strip, or they're going to be linked in parallel. This rack right here, it's Animal Plastics custom rack. It holds 72 V18 Vision tubs. I've got about 50 feet of heat tape in this rack alone. So I'm looking at about 500 watts just on this rack. If you really break that down, that's maybe 4.17 amps, I believe. This rack right here, it has heat tape running down the back. It is much less amount of power to run it. It probably takes maybe 50 to 75 watts for the entire rack. This one, it's got the heat tape running straight down the back, so it gives more of a gradient in the tubs instead of a specific hot spot. Now I've gone over some of the heating of just these two racks. Some people will have 4, 5, 6, 20, even 30 racks per room. Make sure that your power is not exceeding the amperage that the breaker is rated for. Even though these are not going to be running at full temperatures, because I use proportional thermostats when they are plugged in, which, as I've already gone over, I typically don't plug them in because I run on ambient temperatures. But if I were to run these will probably take about 30% power in order to keep my temperatures where I need them. But always prepare for the max. Take a Herpstat 4, for instance. A Herpstat 4 has 4 channels. Each channel is rated up to 400 watts. So that's 1600 watts just on one Herpstat 4. With this, you're looking at 13.33 amps just on one single Herpstat 4, potentially. If you're unsure how much your enclosures and rack systems are pulling, consider getting a kilowatt meter. You can find those on Amazon even, and plug your heating element into the meter, and it'll tell you the wattage and the amperage that it's going to pull. I hope you found this video informative. Please give me your feedback in the comment section. Let me know how you guys set up your reptile rooms. Please subscribe to my channel. If there's anything you'd like to know or any more information, feel free to email me at Zack, Z-A-C-K, @zgreptiles.com. Thanks.